They auctioned off the wounded war beast for scrap, its pack repossessed him by morning. I work salvage out of Coram's yard, which is a polite way of saying I buy other people's bad decisions and sell the parts. Ships, mostly. Sometimes cargo nobody wants to claim. That night the cargo had a heartbeat. They wheeled him in on a flatbed restraint cradle, and the whole yard went quiet the way it does when something walks in that could kill everyone in the room and hasn't decided not to yet. A brindlemaw war beast. I'd seen picked feeds of them, striped hide like dried rust over corded muscle, a skull built like a battering ram, jaws that could take a man's arm off below the elbow without slowing down. This one was easily 9 feet at the shoulder if he could have stood. He couldn't. Someone had put 3 rounds in his haunch and left the wound to fester instead of treating it, because treating it costs money and a crippled war beast is worth more dead weight than alive. The broker running the lot was a thin, unhurried man named Hesk Dorrell, and he had the kind of voice that made selling damaged goods sound like doing you a favor. "Decommissioned arena stock," he said, walking the cradle like it was a parade float. "Owner defaulted on the lease, beast goes to whoever clears the debt. As is. No guarantees on temperament, no guarantees on the leg." He smiled at the little knot of buyers like he was letting us in on a secret. "But put him down easy and there's a fortune in scale plating, claws, and teeth on a beast this size. Cut your losses smart. Nobody bid on him to keep him alive." That wasn't the kind of room it was. I bid on him because I had a soft head and a hard month, and because when his eyes came around to me, pale amber, ringed in exhaustion, he didn't snarl. He just watched. Like he already knew how this went and was past being surprised by it. I paid more than I should have. Dorrell didn't care why. Money's money. I got him into my bay, cut the restraints he didn't need anymore since he couldn't stand anyway, and spent 4 hours digging shrapnel out of a wound that should have been seen to a week earlier. He let me. That's the part one still don't have a clean answer for. A 900-pound predator with a head bigger than my torso held still while I worked a vibroblade an inch from his femoral, and the only sound he made was a low, steady rumble that I eventually figured out wasn't a threat. It was just how he breathed when something hurt. "You've got a name somewhere under all that scar tissue," I told him, mostly to hear a voice that wasn't Dorrell's. "I'm calling you Ledger. Because right now you're the worst financial decision I've made all year." He huffed through his nose. Close enough to a laugh that I decided it was one. He slept through the next 2 days, healing the way big animals do, fast and hard, like his body had decided it had wasted enough time being weak. By the 3rd night he could stand. By the 5th, he could walk a slow circuit of the bay without favoring the leg, and he'd taken to following me from workbench to workbench like a dog the size of a holler sled, lying down wherever I stopped and watching whatever I was doing with an attention that felt less like curiosity and more like supervision. I didn't know what a brindlemaw pack structure looked like. I didn't know they came looking. They came on the 6th night, and the first I knew of it was the bay door alarm chirping at a frequency I'd never heard at use, because something outside was too heavy for the proximity sensor's normal calibration. I came out with a lamp and found 4 more of them in the yard, low and silent in the floodlight dark, hide striped the same dried rust pattern as Ledger's. The smallest of them was still bigger than a ground car. Ledger didn't growl at them. He pushed past me gently, but there was no arguing with 900 pounds moving with intent, and walked out to meet them. They didn't fight. They didn't even posture. The biggest one, scarred across one eye, lowered its head and pressed it against Ledger's shoulder, and the others closed in around him in a loose, deliberate circle, the way you'd surround something you'd been afraid you wouldn't get back. I stood in my own doorway watching a reunion I had no part in and didn't try to interrupt. It was Dorrell who interrupted it, 2 mornings later, with a debt recovery notice and a man with a stunner who I'm fairly sure he'd hired off a station bulletin board that morning. "That beast was sold as scrap inventory," Dorrell said, standing well back from the bay, because even he wasn't stupid enough to walk in among 5 of them. "I have a buyer for the plating. You don't get to nurse a debt asset back to health and call it a pet." I cleared his lease, I said. He's not inventory. He's paid for. He's an arena unit on a registered owner contract. You bought salvage rights to a corpse in waiting, not a living animal. Read the bill of sale. I had read the bill of sale. So, apparently, had the scarred brindlemaw, who chose that exact moment to step between Doral and the bay entrance and simply stand there, very still, looking at him with the patient, unhurried attention of something that has all the time in the world and has decided to spend it on you specifically. Doral's hired man raised the stunner about 4 inches before he seemed to remember there were 4 other war beasts he hadn't accounted for, all of whom had gone very quiet and very interested. He put it back down. This is theft of recovered assets, Doral said, a little less smoothly than before. Then file it, I said. With the yard adjudicator. Who, I'd point out, is going to ask why a decommissioned arena unit was left to rot with an infected gunshot wound instead of being treated, which is a welfare violation that costs you your auction license a lot faster than my paperwork costs me anything. That landed. I watched it land. Doral's jaw worked like he was chewing on the math of it, and the math, with 5 brindlemaws standing in a yard he no longer felt comfortable entering, was not in his favor. He left without the plating, without the claws, and without, I'd guess, much of his dignity. The hired man left faster than he'd arrived. The adjudicator's office logged my welfare complaint inside the hour, mostly because I had 4 witnesses with very large teeth standing patiently behind me while I filed it, and witnesses who don't blink make for compelling testimony even when they don't talk. Doral's auction license is under review. I hear he's selling parts out of a different yard now, somewhere with a worse reputation than Quorum's, which says something. Ledger didn't leave with the pack that morning. He stayed at the bay door a long time, looking back and forth between them and me like he was doing some kind of math of his own. Then he lay back down on the workbench side patch of floor he'd claimed as his, and the scarred one, I started calling her seam, for the long old wound across her eye, sat down in the doorway like that settled it. The other 3 come around most nights now. I've stopped pretending I run a salvage yard and started accepting I run something closer to a very large, very patient kennel with excellent collateral against debt collectors. Doral never came back. I don't think he's going to. Ledger still huffs that almost laugh when I call him a bad financial decision. I've started believing him when he disagrees.